Hi, I'm Daniel Smith, and I'm going to talk to you about my Theory, Culture and Society article entitled The Joke Secret and an Ethics of Modern Individuality. The subtitle is From Freud to Simmel. The article really comes out of a more empirically minded project around the role that stand-up comedians in particular are taking in relation to questions around identity politics and various forms of the uses of humour in relation to societal belonging in a kind of broadly conceived sense. And it was from that project, which I completed about 3 years ago with a short book called Comedy and Critique, that I was very interested in the ways in which political comedy, or all comedy being in some way politically motivated, is doomed to failure, that comedy is not a very good way to address political issues. And there's a large literature on this, which I try to address in the paper, but I was more struck by the ways in which the routines that I was interested in and the comedians' own talk that I was listening to was much more orientated to the ways in which their humour was related to their ethical status, that their playing out of their political sentiments was also a way to try and talk about their own goodness or badness. And it was with this in mind that the current article is orientated around, because I focus this at the start of the paper by saying I think a lot of what contemporary comedians are doing is responding to a feeling that a lot of contemporary people in general have, which is not knowing whether the joke's on them or not. Are they being laughed with or at? And I try to ground this in the paper in relation to the talk of one comedian in particular, and take it as a starting point to think it through. But in so doing, I then relate it to the questions that Freud was asking in the joke and its relation to the unconscious. In particular, the joke as a social process, or the motive for jokes, is one of the chapters in that book, where he asks the question, what is the role that the other person plays in my laughter, in my joke telling, in the laughter they give me? And in reading that passage, I was really struck by how much he was in dialogue in my own mind with the work of Georg Simmel and his wider ethics and the philosophy of the social. So what Freud says is that I can't laugh at my own joke. I need other people to do that for me. And he will effectively say, in one way or another, quite a rambling piece of writing, but a very intriguing one, is that the other person's needed in order to finish my thoughts for me. That there needs to be a kind of pattern of thought which someone is able to follow, and they're able to consummate it in some way. And this was what something that I related to with my reading of Simmel, which is that other people are essential for our sense of who we are. But Simmel points out crucially that there is something in sociability which is always in some way blocked or obfuscated, in that the representations I hold of you and you hold of me are unable to capture the feeling of individuality of you or me. So we're always working within limited forms of comprehension of one another. And it was between these two things, what Freud says about other people being essential to my laughter, and Simmel saying that we're always working with inadequate forms of representation, that I try and make an intervention that comedy becomes an apposite way of dealing with that impasse and relating to an ethical problem, which is how do we have good ways of thinking of one another in a society where it's harder and harder to bear one another. And that's the whole impetus of the article. And hopefully it sort of speaks to wider concerns beyond comedy, but it says something about the ways in which comedy is a really, really apposite social form to capture our current experience. Thanks.